Are you not entertained? Ooh, what a game! This game is easily one of the best games of the season, if not the game of the year, and we can confidently conclude that this is the NBA's first do-or-die game to go overtime in 15 years. 15 years, ladies and gentlemen, and it all came down to a matter of inches. You can hear the screams and shouts from the Buck fans, and understandably so, because they fought hard for 54 minutes. And boy, did they deserve the win in the end. Before we get further into the video, if you want to win a PS5 with NBA 2K21 and Madden NFL 21 included, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications to enter the giveaway. Chris Middleton, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and of course Kevin Durant were the stars here to pull off the greatest matchup in this year's series and send the Nets home. Before the game, the Brooklyn Nets served NBA fans one of the best playoff games anyone has seen this season, which of course was essentially a one-man show led by Kevin Durant, who gave us another reminder of why he is easily one of the best players in the league by a mile. It was a legendary performance that will go down in his own history books because of the way he single-handedly carried the whole team on the back of his shoulders.
I wasn't planning on playing every minute, but as the game started to flow, we got down. I told Coach that, if he needed to take me out for a couple, it's cool, but I feel good, and he just let me ride it out. So, Jeff Green was incredible tonight. James coming out here and thugging it out for us, being another ball handler for us. I just think the second half we played extremely hard.
The Nets were able to collect an obvious win from the Milwaukee Bucks in Game 5, and then the Milwaukee Bucks came back with a revenge plot they took to effect during Game 6, forcing the match to Game 7. Everyone knew that the Bucks versus the Nets was going to be a tough battle. And to be honest, both teams in turn fooled their fans with the expectation that they would put an end to the series before it reached Game 7. But this was not to be. In the end, it was the Bucks who were the visitors that came out on top, as they withstood an epic performance and a game-tying shot at the end of regulation time by who else? KD. The man who has been the Nets' go-to man for the last 3 games. But despite all KD's brilliance, the Bucks still went on to win 115-111 in overtime. It's fair to say that the matchup between the Nets and Bucks was one series that everyone had circled into their plans, believing it was going to be an amazing watch. And even though there had been some close games between the two, it hadn't quite lived up to the hype, and that's largely due to the injuries suffered by Kyrie Irving and James Harden. And then Game 7 came along, and it finally lived up to the hype. There's an old cliche that the 2 best words in sports are Game 7, but it doesn't always play out that way. In fact, if we go back in time and through the history books, especially through the last decade, there have only been 14 of the 34 Game 7s that were decided by 10 points or less. The reason for this is typically down to a combination of fatigue and nerves, which end up turning the contest into a boring, sloppy contest. And if the home team can jump in front early, then the match will end up in a blowout. On each side of both teams, there were big-time performances so much that many NBA stars couldn't help but tweet about the match. Thad Young, who plays for Chicago Bulls as a small forward, tweeted, "This game is unreal right now." Phoenix Suns shooting guard and point guard couldn't also help contain his excitement, tweeting, "This is the game of the year." Tristan Thompson is another player who is watching the game. "What a Game 7. Fire emoji, fire emoji." Portland Trailblazers' Robert Covington was clearly impressed with the match when he tweeted, "This Game 7 given everyone exactly what we was hoping for. Competitive, great basketball." Adam Schefter, Tom Haberstroh, and Michael Wilbon are other stars that were tweeting about the match, but it was Tom who appeared to have enjoyed the game the most, sharing their thoughts about the game in a tweet that said, "That was an NBA Finals in the second round. Masterful performances all around. Wish everyone was healthy, but that's 2020-21. This game was just the 7th Game 7 in NBA history to go overtime, and the first time since 2006 when the San Antonio Spurs were beaten by the Dallas Mavericks. The match was that kind of game and performance from both teams that everyone pretends to play out in their driveway while growing up, coupled with some questionable refereeing decisions, dramatic last-second shots, and overtime. If Kevin Durant was the Nets' Superman, then Giannis was Batman, finishing the game with 40 points, 13 rebounds, and 5 assists in his 50 minutes of action to carry his team to the finish line as most of his supporting cast struggled shooting for large stretches of the game. Giannis was sublime, aggressive, and the Greek Freak kept attacking the rim late, not showing any fear about heading to the free throw line. Giannis was unstoppable around the rim, as he has been at any point this season, despite continually taking off-balance shots and playing through foul trouble. No one was stopping the 26-year-old from picking apart the Nets' defense in the paint. taking on the defense on his own, Giannis continued to draw the defenses toward him, which helped create more space for some reliable three-point shooters in his team to find their shots. Giannis looked tired near the end of the third quarter and asked for a breather that would see him last only 33 seconds as the Nets took that 5-point lead. He returned immediately and restored parity, giving the Bucks the breath they needed. It was an amazing victory for the away team, especially when you consider how much of a mixed journey it's been for both the Milwaukee Bucks and for Giannis. From wasting what was a golden opportunity in Game 1, to bobbling through the most awful performance any team has had in these playoffs in Game 2, to delivering an even worse offensive showing in Game 3, and blowing a 17-point lead to then failing to capitalize on an injury-plagued team in Game 5. But they eventually sent the Brooklyn Nets packing in Game 7. Even though it hasn't happened for the Milwaukee Bucks or Giannis the way they envisioned it, they are in the conference finals and one step away from the NBA Finals. After going 18 years between appearances in the Eastern Conference, the Bucks are back for the second time in 3 years.
We really wanted this as a team, and there was like a lot of ups and downs within the series. There was a lot of ups and downs in this game. We could finish the game before the overtime. And I wasn't able to, but we kept our composure, and that's what I'm talking about. That I almost got emotional because everybody fought extremely hard. The guys that was out there in the floor, they gave everything. They defend hard, they ran plays hard. So we really wanted this.
Giannis, a two-time MVP winner, has been criticized as regards whether or not he can actually carry a team to the title, considering how the Bucks crashed out of the playoffs in a terrible fashion in the past 2 seasons. While the Bucks' losses were not exactly all his fault, those questions were fair, and they continued even at times in this series, and they will most likely continue until he lifts the trophy. Giannis deserves all the praise for his performance here, as he stepped up in a major way to make sure that he and his teammates went into the finals. It was just the second time in his career that he scored 40 or more in a playoff game, and in the process, Giannis wrote himself in the history books by becoming only the 5th player in NBA history to put up at least 40 points and 10 rebounds in a Game 7. But the most important part in this game was when the Greek Freak tied the game with just 1 minute and 12 seconds remaining in overtime. With just about 4 minutes into the extra frame, the Bucks had not scored and were holding on for their dear lives, and then Giannis came to save the day, making a big play they needed as he took Durant into the post and dropped a little hook shot in over the top. Another player that stood out is of course KD. After losing the game and even coming close to seeing the game out all by himself, only to fall inches short, Kevin Durant was still the star of the game. In Game 5, Kevin delivered one of the best playoff performances of all time to give them a 3-2 series lead. Funny enough, KD almost matched that effort again in Game 7, but it just wasn't quite enough. Sorry, Kevin. It was the second time in 3 games that KD played every single minute. It's a miracle enough that Durant was coming back from a torn Achilles, that many basketball players spend an entire season on sidelines for, or never return the same player. But KD didn't look like he's had any injury. Add the fact that the man was responsible for generating everything the Nets did in terms of offense, and you just can't question how incredibly good he was in this game. Kevin scored a Game 7 record of 48 points in what is probably the greatest Game 7 performance NBA has ever seen. Even Giannis couldn't help but heap praise on KD for his performance, saying this about the man who didn't sit at all during his 54 minutes. I said it a couple of days ago, he's the best player in the world. He's still the best player in the world. It wasn't only Giannis that appeared impressed. Marco Bellinelli also shared Giannis' thoughts and called KD the best in the world. At KDTrey5, the best in the world, period. The major highlight of the game is obviously Kevin Durant's amazing moment when he forced the game to the extra session with a step-back, turnaround fading 23-footer just inside the three-point arc with 1.6 seconds left in regulation over PJ Tucker. Unfortunately for KD, his toe was on the line. A few inches back and it would have been the Nets, not the Bucks, going to the Eastern Conference Finals. Tucker himself was lost for words when he spoke about that shot. That was, honestly, I just wanted to make sure he didn't shoot a 3. Then when I cut him off, I thought he would go like 1 foot, step back, and when he spinned, that threw me off. That shot was incredible. I don't think people really appreciated the level of difficulty of that shot. It was incredible. I laughed. I actually just laughed after he made it because it was incredible. Middleton also had this to say. I've seen that go in.
I seen that shot go out. I seen it before against me. But a couple of us said, we got lucky. His toe was on the line. To call it a 2. But once he hits that shot, we got to forget about it. It's still ball game left. That wasn't the game.
Speaking of KD's feet, Kevin said, My big-ass foot stepped on the line. I just saw how close I was to ending their season with that shot. It wasn't in God's plan, and we move on. Even The Athletic couldn't help but take a dig at Kevin's big foot. Despite all of Kevin's brilliance, it's safe to say that it was what defined the Nets at the start of the season that eventually broke them, which is their record-breaking offense. Of course, their steady stream of injuries didn't help them at all, and they could very much argue it's the main reason they are not going to the finals. Without Kyrie Irving and with James Harden not exactly himself, the Nets just didn't have enough to go through. Harden had 22 points, but 5 of 17 from the field, while the Nets did not have a single point off the bench. During the extra period, the Nets only scored 2 points. The Bucks, on the other hand, had only 4, but it was enough to see them through. That didn't stop the fans who enjoyed watching the Nets from talking about how they felt. One fan wrote, "The Nets really signed Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, James Harden, and Blake Griffin just to lose to the Bucks?" The Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden combo was supposed to be the beginning of a super team that would help see the Bucks win their first championship, but it appears it's not going to turn out that way. One woman posted about how her husband won a bet by reportedly betting on the Nets to lose. That's $30 to buy a nice bottle of wine to celebrate with. This one is probably from a Bucks fan who most likely enjoyed watching the Nets lose, as he posted a picture of Giannis holding baby Kevin and baby James Harden. This one's pretty classic. I assume we're all waiting for Kevin to make this happen. Well, we don't think so too, Melissa. Even LeBron James couldn't hide his happiness about the loss after he reacted to a hilarious video featuring Thanasis, Giannis, and Middleton with a number of laughing emojis.
We made it, man. We did it. Everybody okay? Everybody all right?
It's also worth mentioning how Middleton and Holiday delivered when it mattered the most. Both players played some of their worst basketball of the postseason as the Bucks trailed at halftime, but in the fourth quarter they came in the game to give the Bucks a combined 20 points from the field. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that notifications button so you never miss another one of our videos. We'll see you next time, latest Hoops fans. Until then, keep shooting your shot.